Hello. Today we're in the informational text packet. We are looking at essential questions. Number 1, how do readers know what to believe? Number 6, how does what readers read influence how they should read it? And number 7, how does a reader's purpose influence how the text should be read? We are going to go back into our final day of close reading for the articles about Abby. And to do so, for this close read, we are going to be looking at both excerpts from the news article and excerpts from the editorial. Just as in the past, we are going to focus in on what the text says first by reading over each excerpt and providing a summary of the text. Make sure in your highlight, you highlight what the central idea is. We're going to just do one central idea for each of those sections and then include 2 separate summaries of each article separately as your answer in there. Keeping in mind that that information ties in the following learning targets. Learning target number 3, to determine 2 or more central ideas in the text, which means to decide 2 or more ideas discussed in the text that connect the whole piece together. Learning target number 4, to analyze how each central idea develops with specific claims over the course of the text, which means to look closely at the way each central idea grows or changes with the claims in the given section, as well as learning target number 5, which is to make some objective summary, to make a brief restatement of the most important points of the text without adding any personal opinions. Only include the facts present in that text. For phase 2 of our reading, we are going to focus today on a couple new learning targets. First part of phase 2 is we're going to focus on what is the author's point of view within that text. So I want you to determine what the author's point of view is. And with point of view, we're talking about the perspective. So you're going to begin with one of these sentences. The author hopes, believes, thinks, or wishes. And then after we focus on that, we're going to also look at question 2. How do both passages shape their interpretation of key information about Abby's father? So this is going to be sort of an analyzing and comparing each section. So to do that, we were going to begin our sentence with text 1 states this, but text 2 states this. And then question 3 of section 2, or the second phase reading, we're going to look at how does each author interpret the event differently. There is a slight difference between question 2 and 3, and that ties into the learning targets that they are focused in on. So let's review some of these targets. So the first area that we are going to focus in on is learning target number 7, to determine the author's point of view in the text. This is new notes, so make sure you get them down in your notebook. That means to decide an author's position or outlook in the text. So it's not referring to first person, second person, third person. It's referring to what is their outlook in this text. Oftentimes you'll see the question asked, what does the information reveal about the author's point of view? Sometimes you'll hear questions asked, which quote illustrates the point of view of the author on her circumstances in the text? And notice how we always want to begin when we talk about determining the author's point of view by mentioning the author hopes, believes, thinks, or wishes that, and you then continue it. And that's going to be the first question of our second phase reading, as I've said. Question 2 ties in to learning target number 15, to analyze how 2 or more authors writing about the same topic shape their presentations of key information by emphasizing different evidence. That means to look closely at the way each author's writing about the same topic. What do they point out and highlight that's different from each other? So they're going to point out or highlight different evidences, different facts and details to support their own claims or opinions. So oftentimes you'll see this question asked as, how do both passages shape their presentation of key information about the topic? And you want to really focus in on what text 1 evidence-wise is emphasized versus what text 2 evidence-wise is emphasized. There's a bunch of different options for that in regards to how you can begin answering the question, like text 1 states this, but text 2 states this, and so forth. But we are looking at, when we analyze how they shape their presentation of information, we are sort of looking at the differences. And in this question, we're focusing on the presentation of information from Abby's father only for question 2. Question 3's learning target ties in, or question 3 ties into learning target 16, which is connected to learning target 15. This is to analyze how the two authors shape their presentation of key information by interpreting the facts differently. So 15 was on emphasizing different facts. So same person, different thing about them. Whereas 16 is about how they interpret it. So they see something or they have this fact, but they say something different about it. So that means to look closely at the way each author is writing about the same topic, but how they explain their evidence differently. So it could even be the same piece of evidence, but that evidence is explained in a different way that gives each piece a different feel. Oftentimes you'll see this question asked as, which sentence explains how one text presents a different interpretation of the evidence than the other? And within here, we are going to ask, or we are answering the question, how does the author interpret the event differently? The event as in of Abby's rescue. And you want to begin your sentence with, text 1 suggests this about Abby's rescue, while text 2 suggests this about Abby's rescue. The final phase reading, the last time we read through it, we're focusing on the why the text matters. Part of why the text matters is our ability to assess and evaluate the text. And that's going to lead us to this new final learning target, number 14, to assess whether the evidence given in a claim is sufficient to support the argument in specific claims. For your formative assessment, a lot of people ask me what sufficient means. Sufficient means enough. And that can mean in a lot of different ways. So it means to make a judgment about whether the evidence, the facts and details given in the text is enough. In other words, is it strong enough? Is there enough items included? So that enough ties into strength and also quantity. And so is there enough to support the argument in specific claims? As we answer this question, I want you to begin in one of the following ways. You could say, no, the evidence is not sufficient. It isn't enough to support the claim, and then give your reason. Or, yes, the evidence is sufficient. It is enough to support the claim because. And again, you are doing that for each. So you need to make a decision and assess each section, the article and the editorial separately. You may have the same response for both. Maybe you think both are sufficient. Maybe you think one's sufficient but not the other. Maybe you think neither are sufficient. That is what you have to be able to explain and support using the text to help. So go ahead and get started on this close reading as we look at these specific learning targets.